Hello, future biologists. Welcome to an exciting journey into the world of plant reproduction. Today, we are unraveling the fascinating process of pollination, a key step for how plants make new life. We'll explore the two main types, self-pollination and cross-pollination, and discover the incredible agents from tiny insects to the invisible wind that help plants spread their pollen. Get ready to explore this topic from easy basics to advanced competitive insights. Ready to discover how plants get their start? Let's begin with the basics of pollination. Pollination is the very first step in how flowering plants reproduce. It's the essential transfer of tiny pollen grains from the anther, which is the male part of the flower, to the stigma, the receptive female part. Think of it like a plant's way of mating before new seeds and fruits can form. Now, sometimes a flower can pollinate itself. This is called self-pollination. It happens when pollen from a flower lands on its own stigma or another flower on the very same plant. Plants like peas and wheat often use this method, ensuring they can reproduce even when no external help is around. But what if a plant wants to mix things up a bit? That's where cross-pollination comes in. This is when pollen travels from one plant to a flower on a different plant of the same species. It's like two different plants mating, and it's great for creating stronger, more diverse offspring. Apples and corn are good examples. And how does pollen travel between plants? Well, it needs helpers, called agents. Wind can carry light pollen far distances, like for grasses. Water can carry pollen for aquatic plants, though it's less common. But the most famous helpers are insects, like bees, who are attracted to colorful flowers and carry pollen from flower to flower as they collect nectar. Time for some quick checks. What is the main purpose of pollination in flowering plants? Next, can you differentiate between self-pollination and cross-pollination, and give one example for each? And finally, name 3 common agents that help in the process of pollination. Pause here, think about your answers, and test your understanding. Now, let's dive a little deeper into the amazing world of pollination and its vital role. Pollination is absolutely essential for the survival and diversity of flowering plants, and it directly impacts our own food supply. It's the crucial step that initiates fertilization, leading to the formation of seeds and fruits. Without it, most plants couldn't produce new generations. Now, let's explore self-pollination in more detail. It's a self-sustaining strategy where pollen transfers within the same flower or plant. The big advantage here is reproductive assurance. A plant can produce seeds even if there are no other plants or pollinators around. It also preserves specific genetic traits. However, this method limits genetic variation, making plants less adaptable to changes and potentially leading to inbreeding depression over generations. On the flip side, cross-pollination is all about genetic diversity. When pollen moves between different plants, it mixes genes, leading to offspring that are often stronger, more adaptable, and more resistant to diseases. This is known as hybrid vigor. This strategy is crucial for a species' long-term survival and evolution. The disadvantage, however, is that cross-pollination relies heavily on external agents, which means it's less reliable if these agents are scarce. Plants also have to invest more energy into producing colorful petals, sweet nectar, or strong scents to attract these pollinators. Think of apples or sunflowers. They thrive on cross-pollination for healthier offspring. So, who are these vital agents of pollination? Let's meet them. First, wind pollination or anemophily. These flowers are usually small, dull, and unscented, but they produce vast amounts of light, dry pollen, and have large, feathery stigmas to catch it. Think of grasses and corn. Then there's water pollination, or hydrophily, which is rare and found in aquatic plants like Vallisneria, where pollen floats on the water. Most commonly, we have insect pollination or entomophily. These flowers are often brightly colored, fragrant, and produce nectar to attract bees, butterflies, and other insects. Their pollen is sticky to cling to insect bodies. Roses and sunflowers are perfect examples. Beyond these, birds and bats also play significant roles. Ultimately, pollination is critical not just for plant life, but for the entire food web and global food security. Let's check your understanding. First, list 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of self-pollination. Next, how does cross-pollination benefit plant species in the long run? Third, describe the typical characteristics of a vine-pollinated flower. Fourth, give an example of a plant that undergoes water pollination. And finally, why are brightly colored petals and nectar so important for insect-pollinated flowers? Take a moment to formulate your answers. Ready to uncover the intricate strategies plants use? Let's explore the advanced world of pollination adaptations. Pollination is a complex biological process involving diverse strategies finely tuned through coevolution between plants and their environment. It's not just about pollen transfer, but about intricate adaptations. Let's start with vine pollination or Anemophily ***. These plants produce enormous quantities of very small, light, and dry pollen because much of it is wasted. Their anthers are often large, loosely attached, and exposed to the vine for easy dispersal. The stigmas are equally adapted, large, feathery, or branched to efficiently trap airborne pollen. These flowers typically have reduced or absent petals and no nectar or scent, as they don't need to attract animals. Examples include grasses and cereals like corn and wheat. Next, let's look at water pollination or hydrophily ***, which is quite rare, found mainly in aquatic plants. Their pollen is usually unwettable and can be long and ribbon-like or spherical with a mucilaginous coating for protection. There are 2 main types, epihydrophily, where pollen floats on the water surface, like in Vallisneria, and hypohydrophily, where pollen is carried completely submerged, as seen in Zostera. Then, we have insect pollination, or entomophily ***, which showcases remarkable coevolution. These flowers use bright colors, strong scents, and sweet nectar to attract insects. Their pollen is often sticky or spiky to easily attach to insect bodies. Flower shapes are incredibly diverse, often adapted to specific pollinators, forming what we call pollination syndromes. Think of the specialized relationship between an orchid and its pollinator. Many plants have evolved clever mechanisms, called outbreeding devices, to prevent self-pollination and promote cross-pollination, ensuring genetic diversity. One such mechanism is dichogamy ***, where the anthers and stigma mature at different times. This can be protandry, where anthers mature first, or protogeny, where stigmas mature first. Another is hercogamy ***, a physical barrier between the anther and stigma. Heterostyly *** involves different lengths of stamens and pistils in different flowers, forcing cross-pollination. Self-incompatibility ** is a genetic block preventing pollen from the same plant from fertilizing the ovule. Finally, unisexuality ***, with separate male and female flowers or plants, also promotes outcrossing. All these strategies ensure genetic variation, which is crucial for a species' adaptability and long-term survival. Let's test your advanced understanding. First, explain how dichogamy and self-incompatibility promote cross-pollination. Next, describe the key floral adaptations seen in anemophilous flowers and why they're necessary. Third, compare and contrast epihydrophily and hypohydrophily with examples. Fourth, what is a pollination syndrome, and give an insect-related example. Fifth, List and explain two structural adaptations, other than timing, that prevent self-pollination. Sixth, why is genetic variation, facilitated by cross-pollination, vital for plant survival? And finally, how do insect-pollinated flowers ensure their pollen successfully adheres to the pollinator's body? Take your time to answer these thoroughly. Prepare to delve into the deepest layers of pollination science, exploring its competitive depth and profound impact on our world. Pollination is truly a coevolutionary masterpiece, a process refined over millions of years, shaping the very fabric of life on Earth. It's a complex dance involving not just morphology, but also physiology, genetics, and ecology, fundamental to the incredible diversity of angiosperms and the stability of global ecosystems. Understanding these intricate mechanisms is crucial for advancing agriculture, informing conservation strategies, and predicting how plant communities will respond to climate change. We'll explore how both abiotic and biotic agents have driven astonishing evolutionary innovations in floral design and reproductive strategies. Let's examine the specialized adaptations for abiotic agents. In **vine pollination, or anemophily ***, efficiency is achieved through mass production and aerodynamic design. Pollen grains often have specific shapes, like the buoyant air sacs in pine pollen, for maximum airborne travel. Anthers are versatile and exposed, while stigmas are plumose or penicillate, maximizing their capture surface. The strategy is energy efficient, as plants don't invest in nectar or showy petals, despite the high volume of pollen produced. For *** water pollination, or hydrophily ***, unique pollen morphologies are key. In ***, pollen is remarkably filamentous, increasing its contact potential underwater. In **Vallisneria**, male flowers detach and float to the surface, precisely releasing pollen near the female flowers, utilizing surface tension for directed transfer. Pollen often possesses unwettable exines or mucilaginous coatings for protection and buoyancy control. Now, for the coevolutionary strategies in biotic pollination, where plants and animals engage in a complex system of rewards and sometimes manipulation. *** insect pollination, or entomophily ***, exhibits highly specialized pollination syndromes. For bees, flowers are typically blue or yellow, with UV patterns and sweet scents, often featuring landing platforms and nectar guides. Butterflies prefer bright, tubular flowers with faint scents, while moths are drawn to pale, night-fragrant flowers with deep tubes. Flies are often attracted to dull, reddish-brown flowers emitting foul, carrion-like odors. Some orchids even employ mimicry, releasing pheromones or mimicking female insects to trick males into pseudocopulation, thus ensuring pollination without offering a reward. *** bird pollination, or ornithophily ***, often involves bright red or orange tubular flowers with abundant watery nectar but no scent, as birds have a poor sense of smell. And *** bat pollination, or Chiropterophily ***, features large, sturdy, dull-colored flowers that open at night, emitting strong musky or fruity scents, providing ample nectar for their powerful visitors. These diverse strategies highlight the incredible specialization driven by coevolution. The impact of pollination extends to the very genetics of plant populations and global food systems. Self-pollination, while ensuring reproduction, leads to increased homozygosity and inbreeding depression, reducing vigor and fertility over generations. Cross-pollination, conversely, promotes hybrid vigor through increased heterozygosity, resulting in stronger, more adaptable offspring. Many plants employ mixed mating systems to balance these trade-offs. Human intervention, through artificial pollination, is crucial for plant breeding, developing hybrid seeds with superior traits, and even mitigating pollinator decline in some crops. However, a looming crisis is the global decline of pollinators, driven by habitat loss, pesticides, and climate change. This threatens not only wild biodiversity but also billions of dollars in agricultural output, making urgent conservation efforts paramount. Understanding pollination syndromes helps predict these interactions, guiding conservation. Let's tackle some challenging questions. First, discuss the evolutionary trade-offs associated with self-pollination versus cross-pollination, including inbreeding depression and hybrid vigor. Second, detail the specific aerodynamic and morphological adaptations of pollen and stigmas that maximize efficiency in vine-pollinated plants. Third, compare and contrast the pollination mechanisms and adaptations of flowers pollinated by bees, butterflies, and moths, highlighting key differences in their pollination syndromes. Fourth, explain how artificial pollination is utilized in modern agriculture, beyond basic crop production, and its significance for plant breeding. Fifth, describe the unique adaptations of *Vallisneria* and *Zostera* for water pollination, distinguishing between epiphydrophily and hypohydrophily. Continuing with our challenging questions. Sixth, what is the ecological significance of pollination syndromes? Provide an example of how a plant might manipulate a pollinator without offering a nutritional reward. Seventh, analyze the multifaceted causes and consequences of global pollinator decline. What strategies are being implemented to mitigate this crisis? Eighth, discuss the role of self-incompatibility systems in promoting outcrossing and maintaining genetic diversity in plant populations. Ninth, how do plants with unisexual flowers, both monoecious and dioecious, promote cross-pollination, and what are the limitations of monoecious in preventing self-fertilization? And finally, evaluate the statement, while seemingly wasteful, the high pollen production in vine-pollinated plants is an energy-efficient strategy. Justify your answer thoroughly. And that wraps up a deep dive into the fascinating world of pollination. From the simple transfer of pollen to the complex coevolutionary dance between plants and their agents, we've explored how crucial this process is for all life on Earth. We hope you've gained a richer understanding of how plants reproduce and the vital role of pollinators. Don't forget to visit synapse.omaps.in for more amazing educational content and practice questions. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting biology lessons. Keep exploring, keep learning.